you might hit a wall, shit could hit the fan. But if you can navigate this with gratitude, I promise you are going to be better off.
I had kids who had been in the weight room for maybe 2 months worth of experience. I've had kids who've been in a weight room since they were age 12.
When you have strong convictions in what you believe, it becomes very natural to follow through and live that out with integrity.
I think also they're perhaps more likely to open up because we can empathize with them. And I think all of that plays into how student athletes show us their vulnerable side more so than they might another staff member.
Again, if you can fail with gratitude but succeed with grit, this whole journey is going to be a whole lot easier.
Takeaway for me and probably a lot of individuals is having a system in place for success is what allows us to continue as a profession, and it's one of those things that allows us to be taken seriously as a profession as well. Just having a well thought out system that's cohesive and all those spokes in the wheel, so to speak, kind of work together. And Beth, honestly, I love what you said, and I like that quote about cockroaches and dinosaurs. I could probably tell you a few stories about some cockroaches I've seen that I wish they were gone, but regardless, I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker today. We first met a number of years ago at a conference through a mutual friend of ours that is actually now my fiance. Sorry to those you didn't know, but at the time I remember thinking, she seems pretty cool. I wonder how many Plae shirts I'll be able to get. And in later interactions, that thought changed more from, man, she remembered my name, which is pretty cool in today's society is a big thing, and it's definitely big for me. And just through many conversations with mutual friends, colleagues, and even listening to her speak at NSCA conferences, or even just the numerous video series that are now put out through Plae, one thing was clear to me, and pardon kind of the slang, but she's a real one, right? If you've ever had an encounter with her, but I have no doubt that encounter was genuine. It was honest. She's an authentic individual. She definitely doesn't know this, but she's one of few people that actually sparked me coming out of my anti-networking shell, so to speak. And if you haven't watched Plae's Coaching in Quarantine series, I don't know where you've been, but you should. You'll see her interviewing and just having conversations with a ton of solid guests like Andrea Hootie, Megan Young, Ryan Metzger, and it goes on. She's gone from being a stud soccer player at Stony Brook to one of their future Hall of Famers, and now she's the Associate Director for Performance and Education at Plae. I'm proud to introduce our next guest because I think that everything she says just comes from a great place. And without further ado, Marisa, Viola, the floor is yours.
Well, damn, Will. I mean, I'm looking at some of my friends on the screen and they're just like smiling, and I just got more nervous than I was before, but thank you so much for that incredible introduction. I guess I just need to hit you up the next time I do a presentation because, I mean, I've never been introduced to like that before. So thank you so much. Thank you also to Indiana Strength for allowing me to be a part of this today. I've been able to follow you guys, and, obviously what we do at Plae, we're always trying to, partner with people that are innovative, and the fact that you guys have created this series has been absolutely tremendous for everybody that's been involved, both speakers and attendees. So thank you, and thank you for the entire staff. I'm not going to go through everybody, but I think I've been in touch with 4 or 5 of you since this whole thing has gone down. So I don't want to miss anybody, but thank you to every single one of you. I'm only supposed to speak for 10 minutes. It's going to be as fast as possible because I have a really awesome topic to bring to you today. It was just something, Will kind of alluded to the fact that, I pride myself in authenticity. And if you know me personally, that is through and through what I constantly strive to do is to expose that and to share that with others to hopefully bring it out in them as well. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Also, if you hear anything in the background, it's my 11-and-a-half-week-old puppy snoring. So he has to be by me most of the day. So he's right beside me, and he's snoring away. Without further ado, authenticity, discovery, and resolution. I am the Associate Director of Performance Education. I'm also the Northeast Sales Consultant based on my strength and conditioning background. It's really not about sales for me. It's really just about connecting. Let's see, how do I do this? Do I click? Okay, cool. All right, so objectives today, much like kind of Beth also kind of lined out her presentation. At the end of the day, I want you guys to better learn who you are as a person, as a professional, and kind of how you want to take that information and use it to your advantage. So what is your authentic self? When you do find authenticity, you have to decide who you are and you got to stick with it. I think it's so important, especially in this industry. There's so many different ways to train athletes. There's so many different ways to coach. But when you become you, stick with it, live and die by it, and let people know that that's what you're about and that's who you are. So there's kind of 3 parts to it. It's your personality, your character, and your beliefs. I also forgot to start a timer, so now I'm going to start. So I'm going to say it's 10 minutes from now. So your personality, Ron McKeefer is a former supervisor of mine, and he introduced me to the Gary Smalley personality test. It's so important, I think, for you to discover the personality that you have or the personality type that you possess. But I think it's even more of a victory when you find out the personality types of those who are around you in the workplace and anyone that's personal to you, any of your personal friends or family. Basically, it's a lion, otter, beaver, retriever. You might categorize yourself as 1 or 2, maybe one or the other, but basically a lion is going to be your, super boisterous, loud in control, my way or the highway, great at discipline, but maybe not as great as connecting with people. Your otter is going to be your fun loving coach that, they're the ones that's always bopping to the beat. They tend to be the coaches that are constantly connecting with athletes, but not always the best when it comes to discipline. Your retriever is that loyal coach. They're always going to, you never got to worry about them listening or, doing what they're asked, but they're going to sit back and they're going to observe and they're going to take it all in. And sometimes they're not going to speak up. They're going to let everybody else speak before they do. And then the beaver, think about a beaver building a dam. They're super meticulous. They're going to be your note keepers, your sticky note people, your sticky note coaches. We all know who they are. But I mean, we probably have all labeled ourselves just by hearing a little bit of that. And, it's okay if that you're, really high on one but you have tendencies of the others. It's kind of a conglomerate, but again, I think it's more of a victory to figure out what the personality types are the people that are around you. So your character, this is your mental and moral compass, what you're about, how you treat others. I kind of listed a couple things here. Do you help your interns? Or are you just commanding and demanding of them as opposed to helping them and sharing experiences with them? A big thing for me, this is a lesson I learned before I became a full-time assistant. I had a coach ask me, do you say hi to the maintenance staff? Do you say hi to the grounds crew? What type of relationships do you have with these people? And it, really made me, realize that, okay, it's not just about, making friends with administration, right? It's about making friends and creating those professional friendships with everybody. For those that don't know me, my fiance is the head football strength coach at Maryland, and he has one guy assigned on the maintenance staff to the weight room, and we have him over for Thanksgiving. He comes over for cookouts, obviously before the quarantine. But then when he gets to go home to Guatemala, he brings us back gifts unexpectedly. And it's purely because we've allowed him into our circle. And he knows that we care about him. And so just think about making impacts in other people's lives. So it's your character. The last thing, are you approachable? And I just want to bring up one thing on your resume. References is always such a big part of our resume, but sometimes as coaches, we forget that we have coaching references, but we need to have character references. So, I might have a former soccer coach that's a coaching reference, but the deputy chief of athletics is going to be a character reference because she might never have seen, or he might never have seen me coach one-on-one, but they know who I am as a person. And I think it's really important when you're putting your resume together that you have coaching references and you also have character references on there. And then the last part of it is your beliefs. Where did they come from? What molded them? Where does your research come from? Who are your influencers? These can change over time, but at the end of the day, when you've combined all of these, hopefully that's going to help you find your authentic self. So the next part is finding your freedom. And I know I'm going through this fast, so hope you're fast note takers. This is where you're going to step out of your rhythm. You're going to break away from the monotonous everyday life. Sometimes you may be forced or pushed out of this rhythm, but that's usually when you gain a new perspective. So take this as a positive push or a positive derailing. Two things come with this. Usually when you do gain a broader perspective, it's usually failure or success is going to occur. And we're going to touch on this in a later slide, but make sure that you understand this. It's as simple as this. Failure is simply change, and success is having satisfaction. Again, I'm going through this fast. I'm like going faster than I originally thought I was. So the first time I did this presentation, it was a much longer and drawn out presentation with a lot more slides, but I actually got to do this presentation in Poland nonetheless. And so I thought it was only appropriate to have a Polish statesman as one of my quotes. And he was one of the first marshals of Poland, so I thought it was really cool. To be defeated and not submit is victory. To be victorious and rest on one's laurels is defeat. So just to pick apart that or break it down, that first part, to be defeated and not submit is victory, that's basically being in control of your reactions. So Charles R. Swindoll says that 10% of what life happens, 10% of life is what happens to you, but 90% of life is how you react to it. And I think that's so important. And it goes back to lean on your authenticity and who you are, trying not to be reactive, but be proactive, and just understand that sometimes that can turn people off before you can even get a solid statement out of your mouth if something were to happen. One way to help navigate this is practicing gratitude. So I got my girl Oprah Winfrey on here. We all know that she's a BA. So basically, how do you sustain gratitude? I'm not going to go ahead and read the quote. I just think it's solid. But when you're filled with so much gratitude in your life, that's when extraordinary things can happen. But if you ignore gratitude, that's when you're swayed by events. So like I said, the last thing you want to do is be influenced and be reactive. And instead, you want to actually sit back and see it for face value and understand what's going on. Obviously, sometimes things don't go as planned, shit hits the fan, nothing's all great. I'm not asking you to pretend that it is. However, when you can, like I said, when you can look back and say, hey, that sucked, but I learned from it, that is gratitude. And it's not equal to happiness always. It's always, I think, I don't remember if it was who said this previous to me, but you want to find the people that are going to tell you what you don't want to hear, right? And so that's kind of that's involved with the gratitude piece of this. So I said previously, talking about failure and success. Failure, you have to understand that it's growth. It's not the end of the world. You can't control the hand that you're dealt, but you can control the way that you're going to play it. Success, how do you define it? That's up to you. So your salary, your family, wins versus losses, or just simply having a good day. Success is wonderful until you become complacent, right? So avoiding complacency, you have to understand your environment and you have to stay one step ahead. If you don't get anything up until what I said at this point, make sure that you fail with gratitude, but you succeed with grit. Again, try to fail with gratitude, but succeed with grit, and you're always going to come out on top. So understanding your environment and using it to your advantage, look around, observe, be a retriever for once. If you're a retriever already, this is going to be the easier part for you. Okay. How are you going to navigate it? How are you going to use it to your advantage? So for example, if your boss is a lion, and he's asking for something to be done, to be short, simple, to the point, and really command or demand the respect that you're asking, or the belief that you're you're asking of him that you know what you're doing. On the other hand, if your coworker is struggling with this lion boss and he's a beaver and he's super caught up in all the little minuscule tasks of what's going on or how to complete this, this task at hand, you can go ahead and jump in and help in that way as well. So it's so important to understand your environment. Again, gaining a broader perspective, a new perspective, and seeing what's going on around you. So it's about putting together your authenticity and your freedom, and how do you establish your culture with confidence. You have to be open to the lesson of wholeness as it implores us to pursue what we are made of. You have two choices to make when you're establishing this culture. You can use this new discovery and keep it to yourself, or you can help, you can share it and help and empower someone else. I think it's so important. We are a service industry. There is no reason why you shouldn't do the latter. Discovering these things, you need to go ahead and turn around and show someone else how you did this, how you found your authenticity, how you discovered freedom, and how you put them together, because you're only going to make this industry better if you learn how to do that for others. I also live by a base, so if you hear massive planes flying overhead, that's what that is. Anyway, so obviously at this point you might have discovered that life is not as easy as you thought it should be. And this slide always makes me laugh because inexperienced individuals think that, all right, I'm going to be an intern, then I'm going to get a GA position at this school, then I'm going to become assistant director, and director at a Power 5 school. And it's really funny that the reality is this, and you can't avoid this. So there's going to be ups and downs and roller coasters and dead ends, and you might get fired, and you might become unhappy, and you might, you might hit a wall, shit could hit the fan. But if you can navigate this with gratitude, I promise you, you are going to be better off. Again, if you can fail with gratitude but succeed with grit, this whole journey is going to be a whole lot easier. So again, how are you going to use your platform? How are you going to learn this new self-discovery? Is it going to be speaking engagements? I've had the opportunity and the chance to share and give back to our industry, and it just so happened is something that I love. But I have to tell you, 4 years ago, I was scared shitless to do this. I didn't think I could ever do this, whether it was virtual, whether it was in a room full of 150 people or more. I didn't know I was going to travel across the world to do this, and here I am. Dive into it. If you want to start small, do a little research, write an article. I think social media is pretty easy, but again, go back to your authentic self. Don't just post videos of lifting over and over again. You're hard to connect with if you're just posting the same thing over and over again. Make sure that you're showing that you're human. Your student athletes are going to connect with you more on that level too. Or obviously volunteer to be part of a podcast. So again, there are so many different platforms. Again, we're in a service industry, use it wisely. So the last piece of this is resolution. You find yourself now reflecting, deciding on what the plan's going to be and the steps that you're going to take. I gratefully and luckily actually took this picture from my hometown. And it was just, there's so much to say about this picture, but that reflection and, that new growth is really something that resonated with me. And know that resolve, it can unify a beginning, but it also can unify an ending, as long as you're prepared to, again, gain that new perspective, take a step back, but know that you're not done yet. So love this quote, Theodore Roosevelt. I used it in multiple of my presentations. Just to sum up what we got today, again, I know I'm a couple minutes over, but authenticity. Find the courage to be authentic. Not everyone's going to like you. That's okay. It's probably because they haven't had a chance to get to know you. Stay on your path no matter what, no matter how many turns, no matter how many roller coasters or dead ends that you hit. Freedom. Avoid stopping at the first sign of failure. Push through and be open to learning. You'll discover more success that way, and make sure that you have gratitude along the way. wholeness, take the chance and to be freed of monotony, look inward to empower others outwardly. And lastly, resolution. Change may lead you to question yourself. Life will rarely end up the way that you thought it would be. Part of your resolution is learning what you know now and breaking the mold so that you can grow into a better you. So without further ado, that was my 15-minute presentation when it was supposed to be 10. But I'm so grateful that I could be a part of this. That's my contact info. And please let me know what more I can do for any of you. You can reach out to me in any way. And I just want to say thanks again to Indiana Strength that's put this on.
Awesome. Thank you, Marisa. That was great. And I love that.